If you died right now, would you leave bills? If you died right now, would you leave bills or benefits?
I'm going to leave behind benefits.
Bills? Well, I'll leave both, benefits and bills.
Benefits.
And bills.
I leave shoes, jewelry.
Got a little something saved. I got an insurance policy, but I got some bills too.
That's a funny question.
As a child, my family did not teach me about money because we didn't really have a lot of money growing up.
We didn't have a lot of conversations about it, other than, is it possible I can get a nickel or a dime or a quarter?
So we didn't realize we were being tricked to be a consumer. Until this day, some of us are still consumers because we're still trying to be fresh.
Everybody on Instagram appears rich, particularly to the rest of the world.
Black people, we are the single richest African community on the face of the globe. And it makes absolutely no sense that we have poverty.
In 1910, for instance, we owned more businesses per 100,000 African Americans than we do today.
Living in America, I've witnessed very small portions of land and wealth be transferred from one generation to the next. With $1.1 trillion in buying power, what's prohibiting our team from pooling our talents and winning in society?
We can say it's the best of times and the worst of times. We're a $1.1 trillion annual economy. If we were a nation, we'd be the 16th richest nation in the entire world.
We've been taught the wrong things about money. We've been taught that money is a result rather than what it really is a tool.
If I would have understood that early on at a younger age, I would have been way further along in my career than, things just now started to happen.
What can we do to ensure that we're leaving a legacy for our children?
Make sure that you are surrounding yourself with people that have the information and the knowledge of what you need in order to grow to the next level.
We need to make sure that you do have something so your children don't have to start at ground zero again when you pass away, or even negative from having to put you in the ground.
Welcome, everyone. So glad that you are here. We are here for yet another night of our legacy series. The topic tonight is establishing generational wealth, and we are blessed to have back again by popular demand, because Lord, we did not get through those slides last week for all y'all questions. And I'm telling you, it was some great questions. Some of y'all asked some real questions, some really good questions, and some of y'all had some questions that I said, Lord, y'all, that deserved to be on Maury Povich. I'll crack no laughing. So anyway, our guest tonight is no stranger. She was here last week. She did a phenomenal job, and it is Miss Latoya Miller. And she is a businesswoman, a professional over 14 years. She's very knowledgeable and expert in this field. And she has agreed to come back to help us learn. So please share. Hit that share button. Let Pookie and Ray and Nene and all of them people from the family union who are experts at everything, give them the information. Here we go. Let's receive. This is Miss Latoya Miller. What's happening?
Hey, Gary, thank you so much for inviting us back. We really appreciate the opportunity to come back. So
I'm excited. I was cracking up and laughing with you later because I was getting texts, and I'm going to tell. I promise you I won't name names tonight for those of you who may get nervous about the question you asked me. When I was getting all kind of questions about life insurance, legit, I got a question about, can I legally make my ex-husband show me his life insurance policy? And I was like, what? So I don't know. I think they mistook this for Judge Judy or so, Maury Povich. But let me go ahead and give you disclaimers. We cannot tell anybody that they can legally go look, steal, take a peek, or anything else at your baby's daddy, at your ex-husband, or any of the sort. Go ahead and put that out there. All right. Put that out there. She does have some pertinent advice she gave me off camera that might help you. So just tune in. I won't let that nugget go until she says it. Are you with me, Miss Latoya? Uh-oh, I think you froze a little bit. Are you back? No, don't freeze. Don't go. Your computer froze. We got to bring you back one more time. Are you back? Uh-oh. We're gonna give her just a little bit of time to get back on the stream, and I think she'll be right back with us in just 1 second. But the information that she's given us is priceless. Please take this time to go ahead. I hope you see the chat on the side. We will not be putting you on blast, and there are absolutely no judgments at all. No judgments at all. So please invite those of you who have friends, those of you who have family, those of you who have better information or different information for coming in. Invite them to tune in. Tonight we are discussing life insurance. Again, this is really important. Last week, we started off with the life insurance lesson, but what happened was all the questions kind of delayed it. So we went past our hour mark before we could even really deal with all of the information. And the week before that, we dealt with wills and powers of attorney. We had 2 weeks of that because it is so necessary for us to really, really pay attention to how we can establish a legacy and build generational wealth within our families. It is so important. It is so important that in the society that we live in, typically we build legacy, we build financial gains. We have a lot of people out of income. We are making more money now than we have ever made in the history of the world. We have more money circulating right now than we have ever had before. But we have had a difficult time continuing to keep that in our families and pass them down. So it's important for us to have generational wealth. And we are bringing back by popular demand for the third time.
Number three.
Number three. You know what I'm saying?
Number three.
Brandon, I'm so glad that you're here, and I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Gary.
Do you want to give the disclaimer, or you want me to give the disclaimer?
Well, my disclaimer is certainly if you have questions offline about, specific situations, all of us have unique situations, right? I probably won't be able to specifically answer your questions, specifically the one Gary alluded to earlier. The baby daddy question, exactly. Gary, you're a trip. So, but we will talk very generally this evening about life insurance and how important it is. But we certainly realize that everybody sometimes has those unique situations that require, a maybe more private response, if that's helpful. Okay. Yeah. And so I'm ready, Gary. I'm back up and running. I don't know what happened, but hey, we're here.
Well, I am going to step aside and mute and I might go for a while. And let's go with the presentation. Mike, do you have the slides up? I'm going to bring it up. Here we go.
Okay, awesome. So again, thanks everybody for coming back. So we went over last week, we talked about several aspects of life insurance, right? We talked about why it's important, right? Why it's even important to have life insurance. And I think the video sort of did a great job of telling you why you want to leave your children in a better position. You want to do all those things. But essentially, guys, life insurance is just paying for money until you have time to accumulate it yourself. So essentially, you're paying for money. And then we talked about several ways that you can cover yourself. We talked about, some people don't have any coverage, unfortunately, right? So you don't have any coverage, but some people actually do have coverage on their jobs. And it may be limited, in terms of portability and how much, you can get. A lot of times it's 1 to 5 times your salary. And so that's still a form of coverage, right? And we encourage you, if your job offers life insurance, take advantage of it. You probably won't even recognize it, right? Coming out of your check every week or every 2 weeks, however often you get paid, take advantage of that. And then we talked about cash value insurance. That's the type of insurance where there's a benefit, there's a coverage, but there's also a savings component built in, right? And then we talked about term insurance, which is what I'm talking about is level term insurance. It's pure protection. It offers a benefit. Something happens, you get the benefit, right? There's no savings component associated with that particular life insurance. And so the perspective that I'm coming at you guys tonight is from the buy term and invest the difference perspective. And so my conversations have been very general, overarching. And I know there's a lot of questions about, should I purchase cash value? Should I purchase term insurance? And I know people have questions. And so we encourage you to go ahead and, jot your question down, get it in the chat, however you're going to get the question in, so that way we can answer the question. And so there were just a lot of things that we talked about. Basically, last week, we also talked about the need for insurance. So we talked about, making sure you understand why you're getting coverage, right? And so from the perspective that I'm coming at it, it's in terms of what are you going to really use that for? I know a lot of people may think about that day, right? When something happened, those final arrangements, but the perspective that I'm coming at it is for those people who remain, right? Your family members, those people whom you care about, right? So sometimes I might interchange the word life insurance for income protection, if that makes any sense, right? So we want to make sure that everything that your income was going to take care of, that your family doesn't have to suffer financially because you aren't here anymore to bring in that money. Okay. And then we talked about, of course, the different types of insurance. I know we talked a little bit about key man insurance, right? And in those instances where you might have a partnership where, if something happened to one of those key persons, a key employee, an officer in an organization, your organization could suffer in the event that that person isn't here anymore to contribute, right? And so that's key man insurance. And so tonight, I just want to let you know that from the perspective that I prepared, our talk is from the family. So I know there may be questions about other types of coverages, and we can get into that. But the remainder of my presentation and the first slide that you guys are seeing tonight is pretty much a picture of a family, right? And it starts talking about, and this is where we left off, just how life works, right? In the early years, you may need a lot of coverage, right? Because if your family looks anything like my family, I have a 7-year-old and a now 14-year-old. And so if something were to happen to me or my husband, right, loss of our income, that would be devastating to my family, i.e. a loss of me. I'm no longer there, right? So I want to have a lot of coverage to take care of all the things that I would have taken care of anyway. I want to make sure their standard of living doesn't have to be decreased. They don't have to sell the home because that income isn't there, right? And so we want to make sure that's in place. And then at the same time, we also want to begin the process of saving and investing money so that later on in life, right, when you go swing to the other side of life in 20, 30 years, when those kids are now 37, right, they're no longer babies, right? Over on that side of life, I want to make sure that as much as I was covered on the left side of your screen, I want to be covered for that and more. I want to make sure I have that in my savings and investments. See, that blue line swings up. And now people say, well, what happens to your life insurance? You see there how that downswing, that line takes a downturn there? Guys, on this side of life, we're interested in living, right? It's time to retire. Right? So over on the right side, I want to make sure that we have enough money to live sustainably and responsibly into retirement. Why? Because our children should be grown and gone, right? We always have to add that extra part, grown and gone. And then we want to make sure our debts are lowered, right? And we can probably see the end of that mortgage, right? So maybe we haven't paid it off quite yet, but we can see the end of the tunnel on that thing. And so on the right side of your screen, guys, we want to make sure that you have money that will outlast you in retirement. We don't want you to be able to retire and then have to go back into the workforce to maybe get a second career. We want you to enjoy those golden years. So what am I saying? I'm saying that we're protecting you. We want to make sure your life insurance is put in place and structured in a way that protects you from, God calls you home soon, right? And none of us know when that time is, that your family is taken care of. Or if you live a long time, and that's what all of us want, right? We want to live to the ripe old age of 100 and something, right? We want to make sure our money does not outlive us. And so we can prepare for that. We can prepare for that now. We can prepare for that early. And we talked last week about, sometimes life didn't work out that way. Maybe I didn't start investing. I didn't start, saving like I wanted to. Life happened. Well, guys, guess what? There's still opportunities to do that. There's never too late to start saving and investing money. And so tonight, where we pick off on is the second part, which is when you talk about life insurance, it's hard to talk about it without also talking about saving and investing your money. And so the remainder of these slides focus on that, although I know we might, pivot back to this the life insurance aspect topic, okay? And so let's go to the next slide. And so just like, education, so that's where we're starting. We want to make sure everybody understands where to start. So you have your life insurance in place, which is the foundation of your financial house. Now you want to figure out, how do I begin? How do I save? Well, let's think about what it is we do with our money, right? Because I run into people all the time. Maybe they say they can't afford to really save. They can't afford to do some different things. And so let's back up a little bit, take a break, and let's find out what it is, what we believe about our money. How do we treat our money? And a lot of times for us, most of us, we take our money to the traditional financial institutions. Matter of fact, they get your money before you get your money, right? And so we help people understand that there is an opportunity for you to do the same thing with your money that the traditional banks and credit unions do with your money, which is invested in the global economy, right? i.e. investments, savings, right? And so let's go to the next slide. And the reason why this is important is because we want you to be, we're not interested only in you being, cash rich and insurance poor. We want you to have both, right? But you have to understand how they work in tandem. So while you have your coverage in place, now we're starting to invest, but not just invest, because I know a lot of people who take their money again to the banks, but what is the bank giving you on your money, guys? Think about where you bank right now. Think about what, in terms of advertisements, what type of interest are you getting on that money, right? So we educate in terms of the rule of 72. It's a very simple accounting principle. It will tell you that if you take that interest rate and you divide it into the number 72, you take that number and divide it into the number 72, it will tell you approximately how long it'll take your money to double. You guys are sitting in front of the computer, you can Google it, right? It's there. It's sometimes called the banker's rule, right? And so if we look at this example, we look at the $10,000 sitting at 3%. 3% is about inflation, right? So 3 divided into the number 72, guys, is 24. So it would take 24 years for that $10,000 to turn into $20,000. And then another 24 years for that $20,000 to turn into $40,000. You follow me there? And then you swing on over to 12%. 12%, 12 divided into 72 is 6. So every 6 years, that money doubles. So by the end of that same 48-year time period, I'm waiting on 2.5 million if I were to get 12% on my money. That's a huge difference, right? So when I talk about putting a plan in place, right, to have the coverage you need, and then 20, 30 years, 35 years from now, having money in the bank, I'm showing you how to do that, right? How? Traditionally, this is what we do. Take our money to the bank and we get 1%. 1 divided into number 72, guys, is 72 years. That's unacceptable. We have to begin the process. And I know you guys are going to have a long series on this. I know investments are coming up, but this is just prepping you for it, right? So you have to begin the process of moving money to higher interest rates. That's through mutual funds. But why is this called a banker's rule? It's called a banker's rule because we traditionally give that money at low interest rates. They then loan it out in the form of a car, a home, that kind of thing. They've made your money back double, triple, right? Or they can give it to you in the form of a credit card. You guys know that credit cards, you can get 15% plus on credit cards, right? So what am I saying? You can get 12%. There are funds, there are accounts that have gotten 12%, at least 10% over the last 40 to 60 years that's documented, that you can show. But how do we win this money game if we don't know the rules, right? Remember, the insurance is just the base of your financial plan. We have to begin to learn these rules so that we can get ultimately to those goals and dreams that we talked about last week, the roof on the house, right? And so that's what we do. We want to make sure you understand this concept, this very simple concept, guys. And this is the difference. This is the difference between somebody who's able to retire and stay retired, or somebody who's able to retire and maybe having to go back and get something else, another job. But when you have $2.5 million, right? When you're waiting on $2.5 million, I think you can bless a couple family members. I think you can live exactly how you want to live. And I think you can have generational wealth to pass down, right? I think you can set some accounts up for those grandkids that come into the world as soon as they get there. By the time they get ready to go to college, you can do so many different things, right? So you have options. So when we talk about leaving our children in a better situation, this is how we begin to do it, right? Taking baby steps toward making sure that we're building our financial home correctly and that we are saving and investing our money, okay? And so we'll go to the next slide. I'm looking at Gary. I know there's lots of questions, right? And so what is that number? A lot of times, again, when I'm sitting down with a family, I'm talking about your insurance in terms of what you need, right? Your mortgage, any debts, education for the kids, income that needs to come into your home on a monthly basis to make sure that you can maintain those types of things. And so again, I want you to have the amount of coverage that the insurance that you're covered for. I want you to have that in your savings and investments. But ultimately, there's also a number called your financial independence number. What is that number? What should you be shooting for, right? And so we want to make sure that you understand that the money that you're saving today is going to spend very differently 30 years from now, right? When you get ready to start using and withdrawing that money and living, right? Because all of us are going to make it to those ripe old golden years. And so we want to make sure you understand what you should be shooting for in terms of your financial independence number. Okay, and you can go to the next slide. And then, so the base of the investments, right? The base of your plan in terms of putting money in. A lot of people know about mutual funds, but some people don't, right? And so one of the most effective long-term investment vehicles is mutual funds, right? And so essentially all it is a pool of investors decide to pool their money in order to have it professionally managed and invested across hundreds of different companies, right? And so what this does, guys, is it allows you to have, there's no protection in terms of, you might not lose money. We can't say that, but certainly it gives you diversification across a lot of different companies. So you somewhat have a buffer in terms of those large swings in individual companies. I know several of you, I get the questions all the time about, investing in individual stocks. And so certainly you should look into that. But the bread and butter of your retirement, of the base of your financial planning, I strongly suggest mutual funds in terms of where we're saving and investing. There's diversification. Again, there's discipline, because typically you're putting money in every month to do that. You get used to it, right? And you like to see your money grow. That's the whole point, right? We have the insurance just in case something happens too soon, but none of us want to use it. None of us want to use that life insurance. We want to see something. We want to live to the ripe old age to have something to bless our families with. And so through the use of mutual fund vehicles, you're able to invest in a number of different stocks and bonds and companies that just cover the array of the economy in terms of communication, entertainment, pharmaceuticals. You guys see it there on the screen, right? And so you can go to the next slide. And, again, I threw this slide in here. It's pretty wordy, but I know people will be able to go back. You'll be able to replay this. But essentially, you'll probably, fall into different categories in terms of what your objectives are. A lot of people are looking for growth, right? Definitely stocks is going to be, one of the underpinning main components of your portfolio. Your income funds is designed to provide income as well as provide a little bit of growth, but mainly income. And then you have those balanced funds where a lot of people fall into, where, you know, it's designed to do both, right? And so I want you to be able to come back to the slide and read it in detail. I'm not going to read it tonight, but these are the conversations, right? These are the conversations. So when I sit down with my clients, guys, I know they may come to me for one thing, but I'm looking at it holistically. I'm looking at their entire financial home, right? And so this is a part of that conversation, is a part of it, okay? And so I just wanted to provide some more detailed information on this slide. You can go to the next slide. And then, you know, I think this is probably close to one of the last slides, but, you know, what I'm going to, again, talk to people about, right, is an emergency fund, right? So maybe we're not ready to jump to 9, 10, 11, 12%, but can we start with an emergency account? And again, from last week, everybody's emergencies are different. Some people have, you know, $50 emergencies. Some people have $500 emergencies or $200 emergencies. Others have $2,000 emergencies. And I know, you know, a lot of people say, can we get 3 to 6 months worth of income saved there in that emergency fund? Well, guys, I can tell you, some people, that's just like astronomical for them right now. So my advice is, can we get a couple $1,000s that we absolutely do not touch? Can we do that? Can we start there and take that baby step? And then you're going to move on to short-term savings. There are things that you have coming up. A lot of people are preparing for, you know, to purchase a home. You know, you have things coming up in the next 2 to 5 years, right? You need to account for those, but, you know, you're going to be using that money, but that doesn't mean that it still shouldn't be gaining something while you're preparing, right? And then you have more long-term savings there. That's where your retirement accounts, your Roth IRAs, you know, those your, you know, 403B or 457s, wherever whoever your employer is, and then we can also set those types of accounts up as well. And those numbers mean something to you if you're in any of those industries, the schools, the nonprofits, those type of industries. And so we're going to talk to you holistically. Again, life insurance is just the base. All right. And so I think we're going to go to the next slide. Yeah. And so this is me and my partner, my husband of almost 20 years come July. And again, we've been in business for 14 years. And what I did not do at the beginning of the last session was tell my personal story. Like, how did I even get into doing this? Because most of you on the screen, like maybe tuning in tonight, you know that my background is in marine biology. Right? I was hired by the government to do ecological risk assessment. I'm an environmental scientist, right? And so I just wanted to let you guys know how I got here, so maybe the perspective of everything that I've shared will become clearer. So I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia, right? I meet an agent who comes to the house, gives me insurance, sits down with me and my husband, gives me term life insurance, right? And they offered me the opportunity to do it. Guys, I'm making very good income. I'm certainly not interested in doing that. That's not in my life plan, you know. I think, you know, I'm good, right? Well, fast forward 4 years from that date, right? I now have a 4-month-old, a little girl, and I'm out shopping for her, you know, how we do, all the baby stuff we want in the nursery and all those things. And I run into another agent. She comes over, sits down with me. I let her know that I have hundreds of thousands of dollars of coverage for me and my family. That agent tried to sell me $25,000 worth of coverage on me, $25,000 worth of coverage on my husband, and $10,000 worth of coverage on my daughter, who was then 4 months old at the time. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand. You know, if you ever have an experience that just sticks with you, that was one of those experiences for me. And I kept asking her, why would I purchase that if I already have hundreds of thousands of dollars of coverage on me? Why? And she said, well, it'll last you your whole life. And I said, well, But if something were to happen to my husband or happen to me, all we would get is $25,000. I'm sitting in a new home. I'm a new daughter. Life has changed. My responsibilities have changed. And I just don't get it. And so from that moment on, guys, I invited my agent back out to sit down and talk to me. They offered me the opportunity to do it again. And I said, you know what? I think I better go ahead and do this. And the reason I did is because I felt like I had it going on, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about money. I was making good money, but I didn't know how to handle. I didn't know how it fit into my larger plan. I didn't know what to do with the money, right? And so I said, and I thought to myself, I know a lot of people like me that make decent incomes, but probably could benefit from somebody that they know and trust talking to them and educating them on these subjects, life insurance. And at the time, my husband was looking at me. You know how they do, ladies. Sometimes it's like, you make the decision. You go. I know you're going to make the best decision. And I was like, I don't think I'm equipped. And so from that point on, 14 years ago, we're still here. This is what we do. We do it together. He's now licensed. He's not just looking at me saying, you're the one, right? And so we're in business together and fortunate. I'm so grateful to have him in business with me. And so that's the end of my slides, Gary. And I think we do have one, there may be one other slide in there. I don't know, with a video. I don't know if that's still in there or not, but it talks about it's a video of Dave Ramsey. I know a lot of people are familiar with his series on financial peace, where he's talking about the difference of term versus whole, because I know a lot of people had those questions, and sometimes, somebody that they're familiar with explaining it may be helpful. So if you guys decide to play that, you can certainly do that now, but we can also go ahead and open it up for questions.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, let's click. Let's see. We're trying to see if we can play it from here. We may not be able to.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm assuming we pick it up. That must mean we couldn't.
Okay. No worries.
So while we're looking at that, or while he's trying to check that out, I want to ask a few of the questions that were posted. Number one, typically when talking about our life insurance and things that are coming up, we see that our demographic of viewers and people who are typically interested are normally 55 and older. That's the demographic of people who we have an overwhelming amount of response talking about life insurance. Is life insurance something that only the older crowd should be looking at, or is there something that the younger crowd should be looking at? And if so, why?
Great question, Gary. Yeah, that's one of the myths actually, that I'm too young to have life insurance, right? Certainly you should know that, like all insurances, like all life insurance, the younger you are when you purchase it, the cheaper it is, right? So just know that first off. But let's remove the cost aspect for a minute. Let's say that I'm 25, I have no children, right? I don't have a home. Do I still have the need for life insurance, right? And the answer is yes, right? Let's say that my parents co-signed for me several loans to go to college. So there's some things that's going to happen financially if in fact something happens to me. Somebody's financial situation could in fact still change. So we always encourage even the younger, the 25 and above. And the reason why I say 25 and above is because a lot of times, I know with us, you can be a child rider on your parents' policy until you're age 25 for, it's very inexpensive. However, if I'm talking to somebody, Gary, who's 18, 19, 20, and they have children, then you need your own policy, right? Even if you are a child rider on your parents' policy, you need your own, right? Because you have a set of responsibilities that if something were to happen to you, that all of those responsibilities will probably roll up to grandma and granddad, right? So you need your own policy. I also want to put a nugget in here. If there is someone, let's say, you're not married, but there's someone providing support to you. Again, Gary brings me back to the baby daddy scenario, right? If somebody is providing support to you every month and something were to happen to that person, you have every right to have that person covered, because you will suffer financially in the event that that person is no longer here to provide support, right? So again, everything goes back to the need. Now, you mentioned the 55 and older, right? There's a lot of interest, probably a lot of questions coming from that demographic. And so I certainly understand, right? Because, midlife, I get it. But just know that it's not too late to get life insurance if you don't have it. If you do have life insurance, take your policies out and let's read them. Let's find out what's in there. And there is still a need for life insurance if, in fact, you have not, right, done the savings and investments that we talked about a little bit earlier. Why? Because my thing is I don't want you to have to get life insurance starting at 60 and 70. It is more expensive, no matter what kind you purchase. It is more expensive. But my goal is for you to make sure that whatever you have in your savings and investments can take care of final arrangements at 60 and 70. If I don't have the personal responsibility to take care of my, maybe my grandchildren, if that weight isn't on me, then why do I need a whole lot of life insurance, right? I just want to make sure I have something maybe to take care of my final arrangements if that's what I need. But if I have $10,000, $15,000 in an account, why am I paying for life insurance? Why? I would rather you take that money, put that in your investments and your savings. I want to see that money grow. Because that money you can enjoy, right? And so that's the standpoint from which I come at that, Gary, sort of looking at both dynamics. And, I'll also say, when I do run into situations where, maybe mom is 60, 70 years old and there isn't anything saved, right? There are those situations. I get it. So at that point, I'm not just talking to mom. I want to know where the children are, because there's this old adage that says, how can one mom and one dad take care of 3, 4, 5 children, and 3, 4, 5 children can't take care of one mom and one dad? And so I want to make sure that these children understand that they may have to pool a few resources together to make sure that there is something in place for mom, for dad. But the whole point is that they can save and invest some money so that we have, the average final arrangement, it's different. So I don't want to offend anybody, but we say about maybe 6,000 to 10,000, just depends, right? Some people say 3,000. Okay, go. That's great. That's your plan. If that's in an account, then I don't see why we're paying for life insurance. I would rather you save that money and just continue to build that pot, that savings pot. And I'll stop there on that because I can keep going. Getting a little feedback. Go ahead.
So Forbes just did a survey. One of the things that they pointed out was that African Americans tend to only look at life insurance as a final arrangement versus a way of taking care of all unpaid debt and passing on generational wealth, as to 64% of white Americans believing that. They were talking about some of the myths that may have been passed down. What, in your opinion, is the purpose of life insurance?
Right. And I said, earlier, life insurance, essentially, you're purchasing money. That's what you're doing with life insurance. You're purchasing money until you can accumulate the amount of money that you need. That need is different for everybody, but that's what life insurance is, right? And unfortunately, I'm African American. A lot of times we didn't get that message because, unfortunately, our parents didn't get that message. So it's hard to pass something down that you didn't get, right? And so what we're doing is we're starting. That's why the whole point of my talk between these two sessions has been from the standpoint of education, right? In terms of understanding what we believe about our money. And whether you're Black or white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. There's a proper way to build your financial house. And guys, it starts with your life insurance. That is the foundation, Gary, of any financial plan. And we, unfortunately, a lot of us, right, people who look like me, we didn't get that message up front. And so it is indeed a way to leave generational wealth as well, because you're passing down a lot of times hundreds of thousands of dollars, whereas when they have that education that goes along with that check, they understand how to preserve that money and allow that money to grow into the future for future generations. They understand those concepts. So we have to, I believe, make sure everyone is starting from an area of education. We have to understand why we need it first. Because unfortunately, I do run into a lot of homes that do not have life insurance. And Gary, that is not just in the African American communities now. There was a time in this country where you could not go into a home and they did not have life insurance, right? Half of the homes now probably don't have life insurance because they don't see it as a need. Okay, I'll stop there on that.
Absolutely. And I want to go now to the video because I did get a lot of questions about whole versus term.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mike said that he's ready to play it. Mike, if you're ready, go ahead and let's play that. Are we ready, Mike? Yeah, he just told me we were ready. Just want to make sure. Okay. And we're gonna leave this up there, Toya. Maybe when it starts, we can just stop the conversation. I'm gonna ask one more comment. For those people who are in their 70s or in their mid 60s, and may have had different ideas about life insurance. I got several comments. I more than 10 last time. Like, I wish I knew this, 20 years ago. I wish I knew this 15 years ago. I wish I knew this 10 years ago. What is it that if they may have made some different decisions or some decisions they regret about their life insurance, is there anything that they can do at this point?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gary. So let me start by saying this. The older we get, a lot of times, things happen. We become maybe uninsurable. We become, we have issues, health issues arise the older we get. And so it is one of the reasons why you want to get it earlier. But let's say that didn't happen. And now I'm in a situation where, I may have some health issues. I'm older, or maybe I'm completely healthy. I just didn't know this stuff early. Well, guess what? You can start now. Like, it's never too late. It is never too late to start your financial plan. And again, the base of that plan is your life insurance protection. If in fact you have responsibilities, again, if I'm talking to somebody, Gary, that's 70 and their children, are grown and they have children, then I'm not talking to those people about making sure there's something in terms of life insurance to leave behind for their children. They're older, right? I want to make sure that I may be talking about making sure that there's a savings or investment plan in place so that the money they would have invested, right, that they would have spent in life insurance, that they can put that money in their investments and then in their savings. Again, if final arrangements is all we're worried about, can we get to an amount of, $6,000 to $10,000? Can we get there? Maybe that's our short-term goal, right? besides having an emergency account, I want to make sure that there's emergency money over there on the side, because emergencies are going to happen whether you do this or not, right? And so I want to make sure that can we get to the $6,000 to $10,000 range, or if you say I'm going to be cremated, the $3,000-$4,000 range, can we get there? And then now that we have that out of the way, now we can start saving and investments. Look, everybody's interested in saving, and if everybody wants to see their money grow, because the money that you put in life insurance, it's not for you. It's going to be left to someone. You are not going to have to deal with that. So if I'm talking to somebody who's older, I am so interested in making sure they have money available to them. Yeah.
Another thing I think about, I'm getting a lot of comments like my life insurance is sponsored through my employer. Okay, or I have my employer. When I signed up for this job, I've been working 20 years on this job, getting ready to retire another 10 years, but I got my life insurance through this employer. I've seen some red flags with that, but your professional opinion, what do you think about people who are putting their confidence in employer-sponsored life insurance?
Yeah, so with the life insurance through your employer, again, I encourage you to get that, right? Because again, it's super cheap. Usually it's a term group policy, a group term that they have, and all they do is they keep renewing the term, right? It allows you to get lots of it for cheap. But through your employer, do you have the amount that you need, right? A lot of times that's limited in terms of how much you can get, right? But the other thing you have to think about through your employer is you're putting a very cornerstone piece of your financial plan into the hands of your employer, who, if you can guarantee me that you own that job, and most people aren't in that situation, then that's just not something I'm going to encourage you to do. I'm going to encourage you to quickly go and establish some other life insurance. I'm going to encourage you to quickly do that. Why? Because what happens if that employer is no longer there? What happens if you get sick and you can't work that job anymore, right? Second reason, through your job, a lot of times you don't have a policy. You probably have a certificate number. So most people, unfortunately, and we can get into a lot of detail on that. Sometimes there's stipulations in those policies where something has to happen on the job, or something has to happen a specific kind of way in order for that policy to pay out. But because you don't own the policy, because you don't have an actual policy to go through and read and know what's in it, a lot of people, it's just a question mark. They just know they have coverage, but they have no idea what it actually entails. And so that's why I urge you to quickly go get life insurance, get with a professional person to get life insurance outside of your job. Keep what you have on your job, but quickly get some outside of your job.
Talk to me more about what you were just saying, because I think you hit a couple of the horror stories that I've heard about. You hit it dead on. Just little things like check if you have employer-sponsored insurance, life insurance, find out whether or not you have a policy or a certificate number, and talk just a little bit more about what that really means, because I know some very, very awful stories about that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's super detailed, right? We could have did a whole slide on that, right? So through your employer, again, a lot of times you don't know what's in it. For those ones that are limited in terms of how something has to occur, a lot of times, again, you have to have or essentially die on the job in order for them to pay out. Okay, that's super important to know, right? Or there's limitations for what we didn't talk about is for a lot of times they'll cover your spouse or your children. That's a very limited amount of coverage that they'll offer for just, your extended family members, right? in addition to how much you will actually get through the job. But what a lot of people don't realize, and I've experienced this with my clients who have coverage on their jobs, that job can take 6 months to give. If they pay it, they can take 6 months to pay that out, to pay that benefit to the family. And a lot of times, unfortunately, you don't know that because you don't have a policy to read through. You have a certificate, meaning you have a certificate to the group that they're a part of. And they just keep renewing the group term to just keep taking it further and further out. And as long as you have a certificate, you're a part of that group. But you don't know that. And there's a lot of horror stories out there for people who have allowed their employer to take on that huge responsibility for their family. The life insurance thing is so super important. It's your family. So nobody's going to knock on your door and say, you have to have this. You have to have this life insurance. It's your responsibility because that's your family. So who's going to be affected? What business, what is going to be affected if your family isn't covered? So it's your responsibility. And that's how I talk to my clients, Gary, about the group term or job or employer insurance. Unless you own that job, then probably you're just a certificate holder,
right,
for the policy that the company owns, not that you own.
Absolutely. I'm going to just hammer down just a little bit more. And we're not knocking any company. We're not knocking any employer. We're not knocking anything. I really want you to understand that a lot of times I deal with some things on the economic development side and deal with corporations and companies. If you're a small business and you're trying to grow as a small business, in order for you to hire decent employees or skilled labor, you have to be competitive in the workforce, meaning that your job listing needs to be attractive. There are very few attractive jobs that are solely salary based. It needs to be salary plus a benefit package. What they don't tell you is that a lot of small businesses who are starting up can't afford great benefit packages, but they need something to offer as a benefit. And so if you're looking for small companies or companies who have started up, they have put together the best policy they can afford, but corporations get taken advantage of like people.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what they can afford to offer their employees is not good coverage. I am going to post a comment because I thought it was great. John Williams is a assistant principal, and he works in our school district. He's been a teacher since he graduated. And I know as a teacher, this is going to hit a lot of people, but he posted, be very careful because I learned that if I leave, it would cost an astronomical amount to keep. That's key because you do have to realize you come out of college as a teacher, you start teaching at the age of 21, 22, 23 years old. Your insurance that you can buy privately is a lot cheaper than when you're ready to leave. Maybe you're not at retirement age, but you decide you want to try something different 20 years later. And what you pay at 43 is a lot different than what you would pay at 23. And if you're going to keep what you've had for the previous 20 years, it's going to be, like you're saying, an astronomical amount to keep. And we don't consider those things whenever we have employer-sponsored insurance. And I'm glad that's something so simple. I hope our listeners are really taking key. Those of you hear me say, begging you, please. If you have employer-sponsored insurance, the simplest thing you can do is find out whether or not you have a policy or a certificate, because that's a telltale sign in and of itself. If you have a certificate number, you already know what time it is. You're a part of a group, and you don't even know the caveats, and you have to make an appointment to talk to somebody about what's in your policy, and it's a conversation instead of being on writing. This is and I want to post this one too. This is phenomenal. Gwendolyn Dixon says this: I was on my job for 41 years. When I left that job, my insurance was over. Thank God I got my own insurance when I was younger. Can you imagine that? Thank you so much, Gwendolyn, for posting that. top 10 post of all time.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, seriously, I'm on my job for 41 years. Can you imagine working on a job 41 years and your life insurance can't even follow you at that age, you know, to cover you? Because no doubt they had some sort of copay or something to buy into that. And you've been paying for insurance for 41 years. And at 41 years, if they didn't know to go and get their own, they would be looking at having to pay for insurance 41 years later than they could have started.
That's right.
This is why we're doing this, everyone, because it's a huge difference, huge difference. I don't think, so the Dave Ramsey video was not playing. Mike, I'm going to post that screen. Will you post it so they can see it again? Just what it looks like, and they maybe even find the YouTube video on their own.
Oh yeah.
But if Mike can hear me, I want you to go ahead and just put that screen back up so they can see where Dave Ramsey was. Okay, yeah, so this is the Hume. Why is term insurance better than whole life insurance? All these videos. This is Dave Ramsey on term life insurance and whole life insurance. So you can, that's the title of the video on YouTube. So you can go check it out. And it's May 19, 2010, if you want to make sure you're looking at the video that she suggested. All right. This is really important. Really important. One last question for me, and some of the questions I've heard. When it comes down to insurance, how do we determine the right company, and as far as being honest as far as payouts? I know there's a grading system. I know there's some information that they can look up. And my sister, being an attorney, kind of put me on to some of the grading systems that I was able to take a look at. But there are some ways that you can determine how likely it is for a company that you're paying to actually pay their insurance.
You're right.
Because
exactly.
Truth be told, I mean, I know you're a business owner and I trust you, but you know, the reality is, if I pay for something my whole life and then I die and it's supposed to pay somebody, I can't fight them.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And for most people, Gary, you know, their first stop would probably be the Better Business Bureau. You know, you definitely want to look for a company that's A+ rated or higher. That is going to give you a good indication of, you know, that company's ability to pay sometimes, but also that how their history has been in terms of paying their policies, right? And not just paying their policies, how quickly do they pay their policies, right? So it's one thing to pay, but if I got to wait a year for it, that's a whole different story. And so there are definitely some, again, the Better Business resource is going to be everybody's first stop, more than likely. But there are some independent studies that have been done across, matter of fact, it's done every year for insurance companies that talks about how soluble those companies are, meaning how much capital they have on hand to actually pay their policies. You know, how do they rank in the industry? And so there are definitely some resources out there, but you definitely want to talk to people, start a conversation about life insurance. Hey, sis, how are you covering your family right now? What kind of life insurance do you have? What company are you with? People talk, but please, by all means, reach out to the church. I'm sure they have experiences with this and can probably be a great source of information. I mean, they know, right? And so definitely you want to talk to somebody that you're comfortable with also. I will always be the advocate for making sure that you feel good about what you have. And not only that you feel good about what you have, you can go point to what you have in your paperwork, right? And so to me, it's super important, credibility, sitting down with somebody that you're comfortable with, that you trust, to have these important conversations. But certainly you go out there on the internet, but probably start with the Better Business Bureau and then fan out. There are tons of companies, tons of resources out there that you can get this information. It is not hidden from us.
No, and I'm piggyback. When it comes down to the Better Business Bureau and those. I'm an advocate of the independent. I need you to understand that. I work a lot, and I'm not going to criticize anyone, but I know that if all you have to do is look at news articles of recent surveys and stuff about the Better Business Bureau, and you'll understand the stuff that I'm talking about. All right. But when it comes down to the independent contractors and being able to look at the grade scale, like she said, of not necessarily who's been in business the longest, but who actually have paid the people when they passed. That is something that you can look up. That's legal. It's information you want to know, because like you said, it really is, when it comes down to life insurance, I think the uneasiness is sometimes it's more trust than we're comfortable. I have to pay a company and just trust it when I'm gone. So you want to do your due diligence, look up who's actually paying their claims. If they're offering, $5 million for $5 a day, you want to find out. My father would tell you, if it looks too good to be true, check it 3 times. Check it 3 times, because it probably is. And those are 4 times. All right. So, and I want to appreciate you. And I think that this has been extremely helpful, a great way to start, a great way to talk, a great way to go into some things. And I know that we have some even local people that are working with you, and I'm sure that if they reach out, we're going to be able to funnel them, people who are associated with your company and others. But do your due diligence. And I'm going to give you the final word, because I don't see any new questions right now, and we're already over what I call the church attention span.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you guys again for just inviting me back to have this conversation. It's so super important. But my last word, Gary, will be exactly what I said last week. Start a conversation with those you love about your life insurance. Just it's easy. Just, sis, what do you have? Bro, what do you have? Maybe we should get our brothers and sisters together to let everybody know what we have, so that way we aren't digging around when something happens. We know exactly what we all have. And so just start that conversation. If you already have something, pull out your policies, guys. Read what you have. And so oftentimes we're showing people what they have in their own policy. So just pull them out, right? And again, thank you guys for the opportunity to just talk about such an important topic. All our contact information is out there, but certainly, reach out. Okay? And the church, Mason Temple, you guys are such a wealth of information, such an important resource in the community, trusted resource in the community. And I certainly thank you for this platform to talk about such an important topic.
Thank you. We'll hopefully talk soon. Next week, announcement. It's Easter Sunday, so we will not be having the Legacy series on next Sunday night, but we're